1. Imagine a typical family dinner. The room is quiet, save for the rhythmic clinking of chopsticks against porcelain. In the corner there sits a child. They eat every grain of rice, they don't spill their soup, and they never ever ask for seconds if the pot looks low. Their parents glance over and exchange a proud, weary smile. "Such a good kid," they say. "So easy to raise. We never have to worry about them." But behind that praised goodness lies a chilling reality. That child hasn't learned to be well-behaved. They've learned how to become invisible. They realized, perhaps too young, that their cries would fall on deaf ears, and their needs were merely a burden to parents who were already stretched too thin. So they chose silence as a survival strategy. Does this sound familiar? Have you spent your entire adult life wearing your hyper-independence like a badge of honor, only to realize it's actually a prison? You've become the hero for everyone else, the one who has it all figured out, yet you remain a complete stranger to your own soul. Today, we are going to unmask the trauma behind the perfect child and discover why your greatest strength might actually be your deepest wound. 2. We live in a culture that applauds the old soul. We praise the toddler who sits still, the teenager who never talks back, and the child who handles adult problems with a stoic smile. We call it maturity. We call it being wise beyond their years. But in the world of psychology, this isn't a gift. It's a red flag. When a child is forced to understand the world too early, it's rarely because they are gifted. It's because the adults around them were unavailable. This is the quiet, invisible hallmark of childhood emotional neglect, or CEN. Dr. Jonas Webb, the leading expert on this phenomenon and author of Running on Empty, makes a distinction that changes everything. She argues that emotional neglect isn't about what parents do to their children. It's not about the shouting or the bruises. It's about what they don't do. It's the hug that never happened after a bad day. It's the absence of the simple question, "How are you feeling today?" It's a void where emotional validation should have been. You see, a child's brain is wired for connection. When that connection is missing, the brain doesn't just stop wanting it. It adapts. It builds a wall. It learns that feelings are inconvenient or too much for the people they love. This creates a ghost-like wound. There is no blood, no visible scar, yet it fundamentally reshapes the architecture of your soul. You didn't grow up fast because you wanted to. You grew up fast because staying a child felt dangerous. 3. This childhood survival tactic eventually hardens into a personality trait we call hyper-independence. On the outside, you look like the most reliable person in the room. You are the one who has it all together. But on the inside, hyper-independence is not a strength. It is a trauma response. It is the deep-seated, subconscious belief that if you don't do it yourself, it simply won't get done. Or worse, that asking for help is an admission of weakness, a crack in the armor you've spent decades building. You've become a ghost in your own social circles. You are the ultimate listener, the therapist for your friends, the problem solver for your colleagues. You absorb everyone else's darkness, yet you never share your own. Why? Because you've been conditioned to believe that your burdens are too heavy for others, just as they were once too much for your parents. And then there is the chronic apology syndrome. Have you noticed how often you say sorry? You apologize for taking up space in a room. You apologize for having a basic preference. You apologize for simply existing. This isn't politeness. It is a lingering fear that your very presence is an inconvenience to the world. You are still that child trying to be so quiet, so good, that no one has to notice you're there. Let's look at Anne. Anne is a high-performing manager at a top firm. She is the first one in and the last one to leave. Her desk is a mountain of extra tasks she took on because it was easier to just do it herself than to delegate. When she's burning out, she doesn't take a sick day. She doesn't vent to her partner. She just works harder. She believes her worth is tied entirely to her lack of trouble. In her mind, as long as she is useful and silent, she is safe. But under that expensive blazer and that polished professional mask, Anne is just a lonely adult, still waiting for someone to notice she's exhausted without her having to say a word. She is successful, yes, but she is also a prisoner of her own competence. 4. Why did your brain choose this path? Why did being okay become your only option? The answer lies in our biology. You see, a child's attachment system is a survival mechanism. It is designed to seek proximity and comfort. But when that system is repeatedly ignored, when a child reaches out and finds only a cold, preoccupied silence, the brain faces a terrifying choice: continue to feel the agony of rejection or shut down. To survive, your brain chose what psychologists call emotional freezing. It flipped a switch. It convinced you that you didn't need anyone. It turned off the alarms of your heart so you could stop crying for a rescue that wasn't coming. But this silence isn't just yours. It is an inheritance. We must look back at the people who raised you. Your parents likely grew up in a world of scarcity, where survival was the only metric of success. To them, a child who didn't complain, didn't cry, and didn't have needs was a child who was safe. They taught you to be good because that was the only way they knew how to keep you alive. They weren't necessarily cruel. They were simply giving you what they had: a roof, a meal, and a stoic silence. They couldn't give you emotional presence because they had never received it themselves. You cannot pour from an empty cup. The result of this generational silence is a condition known as alexithymia. It's a heavy word for a hollow feeling. It is the inability to identify or describe your own emotions. You know something is wrong. You feel a heavy gray cloud in your chest, but you have no words for it. You've been a stranger to your own feelings for so long that you've lost the language of the heart. You aren't empty. You are just muted. 5. We often mistake surviving for thriving. We look at your ability to carry the weight of the world alone and we call it resilience, but we must be careful not to romanticize this. True strength is a choice, but for the ignored child, hyper-independence was a necessity. It wasn't built out of willpower, it was forged in a state of chronic alarm. When you tell yourself, "I don't need anyone," you aren't being strong. You are being protective. You are still guarding a wound that never had the chance to heal. And there is a danger in this silence. Because you are so used to being the invisible one, you become the perfect target for toxic dynamics. You might find yourself drawn to partners or friends who take without giving, because being neglected feels like home. You are a pro at being forgotten, so you accept crumbs of affection as if they were a feast. You've been trained to sacrifice your peace to keep the water still. But here is the turning point. Understanding this isn't about pointing fingers at the past or drowning in resentment. It's about clarity. You are not broken for being the good child, and you weren't weak for staying quiet. You did what you had to do to feel safe. But you are no longer that child. You are an adult now, and while you aren't responsible for the scars you carry, you are responsible for the healing that comes next. You are allowed to stop being easy to raise and start being authentic to yourself. 6. Think of your soul as a tiny star hanging in the vast, cold vacuum of space. For years, you've believed that if you didn't burn twice as bright, if you didn't provide your own light and your own heat, you would simply vanish into the dark. You've spent your life exhausting your core just to prove you are worthy of existing in the galaxy. But here is the truth you've been waiting for. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to dim your light, to stop performing, and to simply rest in the quiet. Being good or easy is not the only currency you have to pay for love. You don't have to be a hero, a therapist, or a silent observer to be valuable. Your worth is not a paycheck you earn by being low maintenance. It is a birthright. You deserve to be heard, not because of what you can do for others, but simply because you are here. Your voice, your messy feelings, and your inconvenient needs are the very things that make you human. So, for once, give yourself permission to make a little noise. Tell the world you are tired. Tell them you have a need. The silence served you once, but it doesn't have to define you anymore. You've been the good child for long enough. It's time, finally, to be yourself. If you spent your childhood hiding your tears just to keep your parents happy, I want you to do something for me. Leave a heart in the comments. Or better yet, write one sentence you wish someone had said to that younger version of you. We are building a space here where no one has to be invisible anymore. If this deep dive resonated with you, please consider subscribing to Tom Lee Moy and hitting that notification bell. Your support allows us to keep exploring the hidden corners of the human experience. And if you're ready to look even deeper, check out our next video. Why We Fear Intimacy, the Wall Around Your Heart. Thank you for being here. You are seen, and you are enough.